It all started with a flat tire and the world's worst Tuesday. I'd been having one of those weeks where everything just kept piling up. I overslept, spilled coffee on the only clean shirt I had, and then got chewed out by my boss for missing a deadline I didn't even know existed. So when I finally left work, drained and half dreaming of a greasy burger and a large root beer, I figured the worst was behind me. Nope. 10 minutes into the drive, I hit something in the road. Hard. Pulled over, checked the front tire, and, yep, completely shredded. Of course. I was on a quiet side street, not a lot of traffic. The sun was starting to dip below the skyline, bathing everything in this hazy, end-of-day gold. I pulled out my phone. No signal. Naturally. I opened the trunk, found the jack and spare, and just stood there for a minute, staring like they might install themselves if I looked hard enough. "You okay there?" a voice called out behind me. I turned and saw a guy walking up from the other side of the street. He was tall, broad shoulders, messy brown hair, a bit of stubble. Something about the way he walked, confident but casual, felt familiar. Then I got a good look at his face. Logan Mitchell. We went to high school together. Not close or anything. He was the golden boy, varsity sports, effortlessly charming, always surrounded by people. I was not that, but I remembered him. And judging by the look on his face, he was trying to place me too. "Kyle," I said, giving him a small wave. "Kyle Jensen." We had lit class together, recognition sparked in his eyes. "No way, Kyle? Holy shit, man, I haven't seen you in forever." "Yeah, well, time flies," I said, suddenly self-conscious about my sweat-stained shirt and the sad jack in my hand. Logan grinned and came closer. "Mind if I take a look?" I stepped aside. "Be my guest. I've been staring at this thing like it's a magic puzzle." He crouched next to the tire and got to work without hesitation. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing toned forearms that looked like they actually belonged to someone who did stuff. I leaned against the hood, trying not to stare. "You were the guy always asking questions in class, right?" he said as he worked. "Yeah, I think the teacher called me a walking Wikipedia at one point." "I remember that," he said, chuckling. "I thought it was cool, way better than pretending I read Wuthering Heights." "You didn't read it?" He gave me a sideways look. "I barely passed that class." "Figures," I said, and he laughed again. It was a good laugh. Warm, easy. A few minutes later, he had the spare on. "That should get you home. You might want to hit a tire shop soon, though." "Thank you," I said, genuinely relieved. "Seriously, you saved me." "No worries," he said, standing and brushing off his hands. "I work at that motorcycle shop around the corner now. Just started a couple months ago." "Oh yeah, I've seen the place. Looks cool." "It is. You should stop by sometime," he said, then added, "We've got this old Triumph I think you'd like." His eyes met mine for just a second longer than usual. There was a flicker of something there. I didn't know what it meant, but I felt it. "Yeah," I said. "Maybe I will." We stood there in silence for a beat, the orange glow of the sunset settling over everything like a filter. It felt like one of those oddly cinematic moments, real, but not quite. I wasn't sure if I should say something else, or if that was the end of it. Then Logan pulled out his phone. "Give me your number," he said, casual but direct. "In case your Wikipedia brain forgets how to change a tire again." I laughed, gave him my number, and he typed it in. "I'll text you," he said, handing my phone back. And then he turned, gave me a nod, and walked off down the street, leaving me there beside my beat-up sedan, wondering if maybe the worst Tuesday ever had just flipped into something else entirely. Logan texted later that night. Just a simple, "Got home all right?" followed by a winking emoji. I stared at it for way too long before replying. "Yeah, thanks to you. Let me know what I owe you for the tire changing masterclass." "No charge," he responded. "But if you're serious about that Triumph, come by the shop. Friday? I waited a couple minutes before replying, trying to sound cooler than I felt. Yeah, I'll swing by. When Friday came, I found myself standing in front of Mitchell Customs, pretending not to feel like a middle schooler walking into his crush's locker row. It was a small shop, tucked into an older part of the neighborhood, the kind of place with cracked pavement and oil stains that never fully washed out. The door chimed as I stepped in. Logan was at the back, leaning over a bike with his back to me. His shirt was tight in all the right places, riding up just enough to show a line of skin above his waistband. I cleared my throat. He turned and grinned. Right on time. I aimed to impress, I said, trying not to trip over my words or my feet. He showed me the Triumph, explaining the history behind it, how it had been sitting in someone's garage for years before he got his hands on it. The way he talked about it, passionate, easy, genuine, it made something inside me soften. We stood close as he pointed out the parts he'd refurbished, and every now and then his arm would brush mine. Casual, but I felt it. After a while, he leaned against the workbench, arms crossed, watching me. You still into books and stuff? He asked. Yeah. I actually work at a publishing company now. Editing, mostly. Figures. You always had that smart guy thing going. He paused. I like that about you. The room felt smaller all of a sudden. Or warmer. Or maybe it was just him. I laughed nervously. You used to make fun of me for it. I was an idiot back then, he said, with a half smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. If it helps, I didn't mean it. We locked eyes for a second longer than we should have. Then he looked away, grabbed a rag, and started wiping his hands. You hungry? He asked. There's a taco truck that sets up across the street on Fridays, best in the city. Lead the way, I said, grateful for the change in subject, and the excuse to keep hanging out. We ate on the curb outside the shop, our knees nearly touching. He talked about how he ended up at the garage, how he dropped out of college after a semester because it just wasn't for him. I told him about the publishing world, about the ridiculous deadlines, and even more ridiculous clients. At one point, I caught him watching me while I talked, not just listening, watching, like he was trying to figure something out. What? I asked, half smiling. Nothing, he said, then paused. You've changed. Yeah? I tilted my head. How so? I don't know. You just seem more sure of yourself now. Confident, comfortable. I shrugged. Guess time does that. We fell into a silence that wasn't awkward, just still. And then, out of nowhere, he said, I used to think about you back then. My breath caught. What do you mean? In high school, he said. I mean, we weren't close or anything, but you stood out. You didn't try to be someone you weren't. I used to wonder what that felt like. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't even sure how to process it. I'm not trying to make this weird, he added quickly, eyes dropping to his lap. I noticed you, even if I acted like I didn't. The city hummed around us. Cars, distant music, the faint scent of tacos and gasoline. And me, sitting there, heart thudding like it was about to leap out of my chest. You didn't make it weird, I finally said. But if you're about to tell me you had a secret crush on me. He gave me a look, his lips twitching. What if I did? I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. Then I guess we're both full of surprises. The next few weeks blurred into something I didn't know how to name. Logan and I started hanging out more, at first just as catching up, but then it turned into actual plans. Dinner here, a late movie there, helping him move a heavy table one Sunday morning and grabbing lunch after, even though we both pretended we had other stuff to do. We didn't talk about that taco truck conversation. Not directly. But something had shifted. There was a different energy between us now. More glances, more touches that lingered a bit longer than they used to, more silences that didn't need filling. One Thursday night, I stopped by the shop unannounced. I'd just finished a long day, and for some reason, all I could think about was being near him. The front bay door was half closed. lights still on inside. I knocked on the metal frame. Logan looked up from under a bike, wiping sweat from his forehead with his forearm. He looked tired, smudged with grease, hair a mess, and somehow still managed to look stupidly attractive. "Hey," he said, standing. "Didn't know you were coming by. Just finished work. Thought I'd say hi." "I'm glad you did." He reached for a towel, wiped his hands, then motioned to the folding chairs near the back. "Want to hang out for a bit? I could use the company." I nodded and followed him. We sat and for a while just talked about everything and nothing. At some point, the conversation drifted into more personal territory. "You ever feel like you missed your window?" Logan asked. I glanced at him. "Window for what?" He stared at his boots for a moment, then looked up. "For figuring shit out. For being honest. For not pretending to be someone you're not." I didn't answer right away. I knew what he was really asking. "I think the window's always open," I said. "Just harder to climb through the longer you wait." He smiled faintly at that. Then, after a beat, he said, "I used to lie to myself a lot, still do sometimes, about what I want, who I am." My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice even. "And now?" "Now." He trailed off, then turned to face me fully. "Now I'm sitting next to someone I've thought about for a long time. And I'm wondering what happens if I stop lying." The air shifted. My stomach flipped. "Then stop," I said, barely above a whisper. He looked at me, really looked at me, like he was reading something only he could see. And then, slowly, like he wasn't sure if I'd let him, he leaned in. I didn't stop him. The kiss wasn't dramatic, it wasn't perfect. His lips were warm, slightly chapped, and he tasted faintly of coffee and motor oil. But it was real, honest. Something that had been waiting to happen. When we pulled apart, neither of us spoke for a second. "That okay?" he asked, voice low. I smiled. "Yeah, more than okay." He looked relieved, almost shy. A rare look for someone like Logan. We didn't make a big thing out of it. No confessions, no immediate declarations. Just sat there for a while, side by side, not needing to say much. Later, as I left, he walked me to my car. "Hey," he said, just before I got in. "You free tomorrow?" "I can be. I was thinking we could, I don't know, go somewhere. Just the two of us." "Maybe out of town for a bit," I nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that." And that was how it began. Not with fireworks or some dramatic realization, but with a quiet moment in a greasy garage, a kiss, and a question that felt like the start of something real. The next day, Logan picked me up just after noon. He didn't say where we were going, just that I should pack light and wear something comfortable. I went with jeans, a hoodie, and the good sneakers I only wore when I wanted to pretend I was more outdoorsy than I really was. We drove out of the city, windows cracked, music low. The silence between us wasn't awkward, it was calm, full of little glances and half smiles. Like we both knew we were walking a new path, but neither of us was in a rush. Eventually, we pulled up to this quiet overlook just outside of town. It wasn't anything fancy, just a patch of dirt and grass at the edge of a wooded hill. But the view was incredible. You could see all the way to the river, the buildings downtown hazy in the distance, the sun beginning to slide lower in the sky. Logan spread a blanket out in the truck bed and hopped in, patting the spot next to him. "Come on, Wikipedia, show me how city boys relax." I rolled my eyes, but joined him. The truck bed surprisingly comfortable. We sat there for a while, sharing a bag of chips and passing a thermos of sweet tea back and forth. "I used to come up here in high school," he said, "whenever stuff got too loud. Looks like it hasn't changed much. Neither has the reason I come here." He turned to me then, eyes soft. "I wasn't kidding yesterday, you know. About you." "I know. I'm not great at this, at being open. With anyone." I nodded, keeping my gaze steady. "You're doing fine." He let out a slow breath, then said, "I think I wanted to kiss you since junior year." I blinked. "Seriously?" He nodded. "You were always so sure of who you were. even when everyone else was still pretending. That stuck with me. I didn't know what to do with it back then, so I just stayed in my lane, did what I thought was expected. Which was, be the guy, the athlete, the ladies' man, all of it. But now, he hesitated. Now I just want to be honest. With myself. With you. I didn't know what to say at first. My heart was pounding again, just like it had back in the shop. But there was something steadier beneath it now. Something calm. I'm glad you're telling me, I said. Because I've thought about you too. More than I should have. He smiled, that quiet, relieved kind of smile that said he didn't know how badly he needed to hear that until he did. We leaned back against the truck cab, shoulders touching. The sky was starting to turn pink, the wind picking up just enough to rustle the trees nearby. At one point, he reached for my hand, fingers brushing against mine like he wasn't sure he was allowed to. I didn't hesitate. I slid my fingers between his and held on. It felt simple, natural, like this was how it was supposed to be all along. We didn't rush into anything physical that day. No one was pulling clothes off or making bold moves. It was slower, more thoughtful. We lay there in the bed of that truck for what felt like hours, saying nothing, doing nothing, just letting it all settle in. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the air grew colder, Logan finally spoke again. You think this is real? He asked. I looked at him. Feels real. Yeah, he said, a little smile tugging at his lips. Me too. And for once, neither of us had to pretend. After that night at the Overlook, something between us clicked into place. It wasn't like we had some big talk about what we were or where things were headed. We just kept showing up. For each other. More texts during the day. Quick calls. Late night drives. He'd drop by my apartment just to hang out and never seemed in a rush to leave, and one night, he didn't. It was a Saturday. We'd ordered takeout and watched a bad horror movie that turned into background noise somewhere around the second act. We were sitting close on the couch, legs pressed together. At some point, I leaned my head on his shoulder, and he didn't move, didn't say a word. Just slid his arm around me and pulled me a little closer. It wasn't even a kiss that night. Just that quiet warmth of someone letting you in, no conditions, no questions. The next morning I woke up to find him in my kitchen, shirtless, hair a mess, trying to figure out how to use my ancient coffee machine. He looked up when I walked in, rubbing sleep from my eyes. I think your coffee maker hates me, I grinned. It's a mutual thing. You gotta sweet talk it. He smirked and handed me the mug he'd managed to brew. Consider me educated. From then on, he started staying over more often. Sometimes we'd fall asleep watching something dumb. Other times we'd end up talking for hours, lying side by side, just telling each other the things we hadn't said out loud in years. He told me about his parents, how they split up when he was in high school, and how he'd spent years trying to be the kind of man his dad would approve of. How exhausting that was. How fake. I told him about my first crush, about how scared I'd been to come out, how I'd pretended for so long that I didn't need anyone, just to stay safe. There was something about being in the dark together that made it easier. Like, honesty came easier without the pressure of eye contact or daylight. Then one night, it just happened. We'd been watching a documentary, something about deep-sea divers. Random, I know, but I couldn't tell you a single fact from it now. All I remember is the way Logan looked at me when I turned off the TV, the way his hand rested lightly on my knee. He leaned in, slow, checking for hesitation. There wasn't any. Not from me. We kissed. Not a first-time kiss, but a deeper kind. Like we were finally letting down the last of the walls. His hands on my waist, mine in his hair. It was slow and warm and grounding. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine and whispered, "I've wanted to do that for a long time." I smiled, eyes still closed. "You've been doing a lot of things lately that surprised me." He pulled back, just enough to look at me. Yeah? Yeah, I said. In the best way. That night, he didn't leave. We didn't rush anything, didn't go further than we both wanted. We just stayed like that, curled into each other, falling asleep in a tangle of limbs and quiet breaths. By the time the sun came through the blinds the next morning, Logan was still there, head on my chest, his hand resting over my heart like it belonged there. And maybe, I thought, it did. The next few weeks were a blur of routines that didn't feel routine anymore. We didn't make any big announcements. We didn't change our relationship status online or tell our friends over beers. It wasn't that we were hiding, it just felt like ours. Like something still growing, delicate and private. Logan was still Logan, sarcastic, low-key, hands always a little greasy from work. But he'd started doing these small things that made me feel like I was more than just a guy he kissed. He'd leave little notes around my place, on the fridge, on my desk, once even inside my cereal box. Dumb things like "you're out of coffee again" or "your toothpaste cap is a war crime," but every note ended with some version of "still thinking about you." He came to one of my work events too, completely out of place among publishing types and awkward authors, but he wore a clean button-up and tried not to look too bored while I made small talk. Later in the car, he turned to me and said, "Next time I'm bringing snacks. Those canapes were a scam." And that's when I realized he was really trying. One night, he invited me to his apartment for the first time. It was smaller than I expected. One bedroom, minimalist, almost no decor aside from a few framed photos, and a shelf filled with motorcycle manuals and old sports trophies. It smelled like cedar and laundry detergent. "You live like a monk," I teased, dropping my bag by the door. He shrugged, didn't see the point in decorating until someone worth impressing started showing up. I froze for a second, unsure how to respond, but he just walked past me and plopped onto the couch like he hadn't just casually cracked my heart open a little more. That night, something shifted again, not just emotionally, but physically. It started with a kiss. A long one, lazy and unhurried, stretched across the couch like neither of us had anywhere else to be. His hands found my hips, mine slid under his shirt. He tasted like mint gum and the beer we'd split over dinner. When we moved to the bedroom, it wasn't rushed. There was a lot of eye contact, a lot of whispered questions like, "This okay?" and "You good?" And I was. More than good. It was tender in a way that surprised me. Slow, honest, a kind of intimacy that felt bigger than either of us had prepared for. I remembered how he looked at me right before, like he was seeing all of me for the first time and choosing to stay anyway. Afterward, we lay tangled in sheets and each other, the room quiet except for the hum of the ceiling fan and the occasional creak of the floorboards when we shifted. He was on his side, tracing lazy circles on my chest with his thumb. "I was scared," he said after a while, voice barely above a whisper. "When?" I asked. "When I kissed you the first time. When I let myself like you. I thought it would ruin everything." I turned to look at him, brushing a piece of hair from his forehead. It didn't. If anything, it started something better. He didn't answer right away, but his hand found mine under the sheets. "I didn't know it could be like this," he said finally. "Easy, real." "It is," I said, "and it's ours." We stayed like that until sleep pulled us under, two people who never really saw this coming, now too deep in it to imagine anything else. For a while, things were good, better than good. There were still moments of uncertainty. Logan wasn't someone who wore his heart on his sleeve, and I wasn't exactly a poster boy for emotional transparency, but we were figuring it out together. He'd text me random photos of half-finished bikes at work with captions like, "This one's gonna match your eyes," which was cheesy as hell, but I kinda loved it. I'd leave little post-it notes in his lunch bag. "Don't forget to eat," or "Stop pretending you hate these almond bars." It was easy, but not perfect. That was part of why it felt real. One night, after a long day, I came home to find Logan sitting outside my apartment building, leaning against the wall with a cigarette he wasn't actually smoking, just rolling between his fingers like it gave him something to do. He looked up when he saw me, eyes shadowed. "Hey," I dropped my bag. "What's wrong?" He shook his head. "Nothing, just needed to see you." I sat beside him, shoulder to shoulder. He sighed and finally said, "I ran into an old friend today, one of the guys I used to hang out with in high school." I waited. He saw me, with you. A couple days ago, at the coffee shop. My stomach clenched slightly, but I tried to keep my voice steady. Okay. He didn't say anything, just looked. And I could feel it. The judgment. The assumption. He ran a hand through his hair, and I didn't say anything either. I just laughed it off like always. I stayed quiet, letting the moment breathe. Logan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. It hit me. How much I still carry that crap around. How much I still pretend I don't care what people think. But I do. Sometimes more than I want to admit. I didn't know what to say at first, because what he was saying, it mattered. He wasn't just talking about one guy's look. He was talking about years of expectations, of pressure, of fear. You're allowed to be scared, I said finally. You're also allowed to not have it all figured out. He looked at me, and I saw something raw there, unfiltered. I don't want to hide this, he said. I just don't know how to be all the way out in the open. Not yet. I nodded. Then we'll go at your pace. But I'm not going anywhere. A silence fell between us again, but this time it was warmer. After a moment, he said, "You make it easier." I bumped my shoulder against his. That's the idea. He didn't sleep over that night, said he needed to clear his head. I understood. I kissed him goodbye at the door, soft and slow, and told him to text me when he got home. He did. That weekend, he surprised me by inviting me to a group hangout with some of his coworkers, guys from the shop, a couple of girlfriends, beers around a fire pit in someone's backyard. It was casual, chill, but it meant something. He introduced me as my boyfriend, even though we hadn't technically used that word yet. When we got home later that night, a little tipsy, a little tired, he kissed me in the hallway and said, I didn't flinch once, not even when they asked how long we've been together. And? I asked, grinning. And I said not long enough. It was a rainy Sunday afternoon when everything finally settled in my chest. The kind of quiet day where you feel the weight of everything and nothing at once. Logan was at my place, barefoot and hoodie clad, flipping pancakes with one hand and holding his phone in the other. The windows fogged from the warmth of the stove, and some mellow playlist hummed in the background. It was one of those moments that didn't seem important, but somehow etched itself into your memory. The way his brow furrowed when the pancake bubbled unevenly. The way he grinned when I stole one off the plate and burned my fingers. The way he looked at me like he was still surprised I was there, like he was waiting for it all to fall apart. But it didn't. Later, after breakfast for lunch and a full episode of a terrible reality show we couldn't stop watching, he turned to me on the couch. You know, he said, if someone told me a year ago I'd be here like this, with you, I'd have laughed. Same, I said, and I was the one always into guys. He smiled, but it faded quickly. I still have moments where I think I don't deserve this, that I didn't do enough to earn being happy. That hit me harder than I expected. You don't earn happiness, Logan, I said gently. You grow into it. You choose it. Every day. He looked at me like he wanted to argue, but instead, he leaned in and kissed me, slow and soft, like he was saying thank you without the words. We didn't move for a while, just stayed wrapped up in each other while the rain tapped against the windows. Eventually, I felt him shift slightly and speak again. My lease is up in a month, I tilted my head. Yeah? He nodded, a little nervous. And I was thinking, maybe I don't renew it. I sat up slightly, searching his face. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Yeah, he said. If you're cool with it, I'd rather wake up next to you than drive across town every morning. I mean, I'd still do that if I had to, but I laughed. Logan Mitchell, are you asking to move in with me? He grinned. Kind of. Unless that's too soon. Or too much. Or, I cut him off with another kiss. It's not. Yes. Move in. The relief on his face was instant, followed by a playful smirk. Good, because I already started moving stuff in while you were in the shower yesterday. You what? Just a hoodie and some socks. A toothbrush, maybe. I rolled my eyes. Unbelievable. You love it, he said, tugging me closer. I did. I really, truly did. That's how it happened. Not all at once, and not without hesitation. But piece by piece, Logan became part of my life. Not just the big moments, but the little ones. Coffee runs, lazy Sundays, shared playlists, and inside jokes. Fights about where to store the extra phone charger, followed by makeups on the same couch where we first kissed. There's no grand finale to a story like this, just the quiet joy of something real. A flat tire brought him back into my life. A chance kiss kept him there. And every day after, we chose each other. Imperfect, messy, and honest. That's the story. That's us.